Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I am Scott Mathias from NCEA, and I will be your host today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A or chat windows. We will be monitoring the questions and we'll try to answer them all in the allotted time. After today's webinar, I will email everyone a link to the recording as well as an online survey. Once you fill out the survey, a certificate of completion for the webinar will be emailed to you. Today's webinar, The Key to Recovery, Mastering Challenging Reading and Math Skills, is being led by Julie Vogel and Jan Bryan of Renaissance. Julie and Jan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. I'm noticing that still coming in, and so as you're joining us, I just want to welcome everyone to our webinar today, The Key to Recovery, Mastering Challenging Reading and Math Skills. Happy to have you here. Again, my name is Dr. Julie Vogel, and before we get going, we would like to start with a short prayer. So if everyone could just take a moment and put themselves in God's presence. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God in heaven, accept our deepest appreciation for all the blessings you shower upon us every day. The bounty of your grace truly humbles us. Today we are asking for the compassion to follow the inspiring example of the Good Samaritan. Provide us the strength to embrace and bring comfort to all those suffering around the world. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, I'm Dr. Julie Vogel, and I'm here today with my colleague, Dr. Jan Bryan. We both work in educational affairs at Renaissance. We are lifelong learners, and both of us, believe it or not, are third-generation teachers with experience teaching preschoolers through PhD candidates, as well as involvement in leadership positions at all levels of education. We love what we do and sharing what we know in order to help all students and adults reach their full potential. So today we thought it would be nice to have a little bit of fun. So when we go to that next slide, we're going to throw out some recent examples of when we realized our lives were exactly like some famous idioms. If you can think of an example of when your life mirrored a famous idiom as well, we'd love for you to share it in the chat. You know that we're all professional people, but sometimes it's nice to know there's more to us than just work. So here goes. This is a lovely photo of me. I'm actually pouting, And I'm a wood turner in my spare time, and I love art and anything artistic and creative in that way. And as you can see, I sort of messed up. And so life gave me a big old lemon with a big old hole in the bottom of my bowl because I turned it too thin and the wood just disappeared. So when life hands you lemonades, what do? Lemons, you make yourself a big old glass of lemonade. And I turned my bowl into a clock that now graces my daughter's apartment. So it all turned out well in the end. Jan, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your idiom. And if anyone else has one, feel free to share it in the chat.
Please feel free. I volunteer and I actually serve on the board of an equine therapy center. And as a member of the board, I have very extensive duties. Most of them include shoveling. But occasionally I am in charge of getting the horses to get a drink of water. And what you see is Charo. And Charo is a lovely, sweet, wonderful horse. These horses are so empathetic and they help people who are struggling with PTSD. They really make a connection with these horses. So it's my job to take them down to drink. Charo's favorite thing is to go to the horse trough, and he will come to me and nudge and nudge and nudge and nudge. I will take him to the horse trough. He will not drink one water. He will not drink one drop of water. I can try to lower his head. He looks at me like, no, this is not what we do. We walk down here and walk back. So I realized that day you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make Charo drink. So that's why my life is an idiom. And I'm sure today someone is at the ranch walking him to the trough and he's not going to drink water. So that's when I realized, Julie, my life is an idiom.
I know, isn't it? It's just Sometimes it just is for both of us, you know?
Yeah.
Today's webinar is sponsored by Renaissance, where our mission is to accelerate learning for all. We do this by providing assessment and practice solutions along with the right data and connections to help you guide greater student growth at every single level. We currently serve more than 2/3 of US Catholic schools, and we are a proud NCEA partner. And we invite you to learn more about our STAR assessments, Freckle, Mayan, and Lalilo programs by visiting our website, renaissance.com. And Jan, I'm going to turn it over to you to get to the really good stuff today.
All right, we're going to look for 3 key insights today, and we're going to look at these. First of all, the first insight is identify. When we are focusing on recovery, and we've got to get children back, we've got to get them back. We're not saying back where they were, we got to get them back on track. We have to look at these insights for the recovery process. And first of all is identify what is essential. That would be one thing that we need to do. We're not going to be able to teach every single thing we always taught. So we've got to really dig deeply and say, what is essential? What is non-negotiable in what we teach? So that will be the first key insight. The second key insight will be to analyze the difficulty. Wouldn't it help if someone just tapped your shoulder and said, hey, Julie, before you teach this skill, it's really, really hard and your kids are going to have struggles. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
It would be nice to have. So we're going to analyze skills to find out which are the most difficult and the most essential so that you will be prepared to take care of those. And finally, we're going to engage the humans because there are a lot of humans involved in recovery. So we'll dig in and we'll start with identifying the essential. And I use as my inspiration throughout this Dr. Amit Sood. He was recently with the Mayo Clinic, but he has retired. He is the leader of resiliency.com. Good. He would tell me to keep going until I got it. Resiliency.com. But he is one that is an expert on focusing the mind and calming the mind. And he talked one time, we had a conversation, this is in his book, and it's called The Mayo Guide to Stress-Free Living. I recommend it to everyone. But in here, one of the things he talked about, he said, Jan, when you're faced with a choice, the mind confuses choice with importance. The more choices in front of you, the more your mind is trying to look at so many important choices. Here's what he used as an example. Do you buy toothpaste?
Yes.
And it's a very long aisle, right? Okay. There are approximately 350, a little bit more toothpaste products on that aisle. So there's brands and there's brands within the brands, and then there's toothbrushes, and then there's mouthwash. There are 350 decisions you have to make in the toothpaste aisle. If you are not forewarned and go in there prepared, and I want Sensodyne, enamel repair, you're going to be there 20 or 30 minutes. And it's just kind of fun to watch people in the toothpaste aisle if they're not focused on what they need to do. They finally just give up because their brain thinks all 352 things on that toothpaste aisle are very important. So what you have to do is tell your brain, I just need Sensodyne, or I just need tartar control. So tell your brain what you need and tell the other choices. Interesting, would love to do it, don't have time, I'm buying my toothpaste. Another example of focus is one that's not quite as lighthearted, but something that humans do when they're in an accident. They tend to freeze because there's so many decisions that they need to make at that time. So your number one decision should be get to safety and rule everything else out. So focus is what we're going to talk about, not being confused by so many standards in our curriculum. So we're going to look at what's called a learning progression. Renaissance built core progress reading, learning progression, and core progress math. What we did is take the standard set in reading and the standard set in math. Now, standards themselves are progression. You get these big signposts along the way. They're like your goals along the way. So your standards are part of a progression, but we did a step deeper. With the learning progression, we took all your skills in each standard And we put those skills in teachable order. So the learning progression is day by day. Your standards are big jump by big jump, fall, winter, spring. Skills are day to day to day. So we're going to focus heavily on skills today. In doing that, we're going to identify the essential. What must we teach? So we're going to open up, Julie, we're going to do a poll question. I don't want to overshare on things about the Focus Skills Resource Center and tricks and learning progressions if we're already fully aware of it. So let's get a little piece of information from the audience here.
Okay, so I love to read the poll questions because they don't always show up in the recording if I don't. So poll question number 1, what is your knowledge level of the Renaissance Focus Skills Resource Center? A, I'm new to the Focus Skills Resource Center. The next one, I've explored the Focus Skills Resource Center. Third one, I routinely access the Focus Skills Resource Center. Or the last one, I've even guided others to use the Focus Skills Resource Center. So if you could just take a minute and click on which one relates most closely to you, that would be great.
Excellent, excellent. And then we'll look at the results here in a moment, and that will guide us, Julie. We'll know how deeply to go in this section.
Great. You know, I really appreciate the distinction between standards and that learning progression versus breaking it down to the skills, which is very much where we live and work every day. And I often think we forget that when we're teaching. So thank you for putting that back out there again for everyone. Helps me stay focused as well.
Well, that comes from Margaret Heritage. She's the one, Margaret Heritage, who actually helped us develop the core progress learning progression for reading. She was instrumental in helping us with that.
And she's a math expert, right? From is it UCLA?
She's actually formative assessment and literacy.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and that's what she talked about. So are we getting responses to our poll, Scott? What are you beginning to see?
Oh, there we go.
I'm new to it. Okay. All right. We've got 67%. I've guided others. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please enter into chat. And Julie, if you'll monitor that, if there's something I've not shown that you said, I can't believe you forgot this, I routinely access it and I've explored it. Okay. So what I'm getting from you is that we've got help and you've got colleagues that are going to help you with this, but it is valuable time well spent if we take a quick walk through the Focus Skills Resource Center.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that very thing. First of all, the Focus Skills Resource Center looks at all of the skills in the standard set, and it finds that set of skills that are critical for learning. We want to teach every skill in our curriculum. And we're not saying there are skills that you can ignore or throw away, but there are skills that are so important, you must dig deeply. And we have labeled those focus skills. So you can focus your mind on these skills and you won't be overwhelmed with the mass amount of skills. You can focus intently on this smaller set of skills. So let's define quickly a focus skill. When we look in the skills and the progression of reading and math, we analyze each skill. And for one skill to become a focus skill, it must meet 3 criteria, all 3 of them. Criteria 1, that skill is essential for learning at this grade level. If I'm a first grade teacher, it's essential for first grade. So that's criteria number 1. Criteria number 2, it is impactful. In other words, it prepares for next year. It is a prerequisite. So the skill is critical for this year. It's a prerequisite for next year. And it reflects the emphasis of our standard set. You know, different standard sets have particular emphasis. In fact, the state standards set in my state, Texas, has quite a bit of emphasis on financial literacy, and that is reflected in the focus skills for the state of Texas. All right, so critical for learning for this grade level, a prerequisite, and reflects the standards. Focus skills, we always like to compare to load-bearing walls in a house. If you watch any amount of HGTV, you know at some point they're going to say, this wall has to go, we've got to put in a beam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Julie, are you a HGTV?
I am, and I grew up in a construction family, so we understand the meaning of load-bearing walls very well.
Load-bearing walls, yes. So when you look at your set of skills, there are some skills that you could tread lightly, but there are load-bearing skills, like load-bearing walls, that must be addressed explicitly. So those are the focus skills. Now I'm going to look at core progress for reading, and I'm going to give you this example of what reading is in terms of skills and focus skills. So from pre-K to the end of 12th grade in reading, students are exposed to 1,020 skills. That is a lot.
That's a lot.
Of that set of skills, 721 are skills, but 299 are focus skills. So about 29% of all of the reading skills are focus skills. Julie and I are not telling you ignore skills. We're telling you intently use your time and energy and resources on these 300 focus skills, or these 299 focus skills. Let's see where they fall. It's going to be no surprise here. In pre-K, there are very few focus skills, but look at K1, 2, and 3. Just in chat, and Julie, if you don't mind monitoring that, why do you think there's such a heavy load in 1, 2, and 3 in the skills? It basically kind of calms down through the rest of the progress of learning. You've got a little bit in pre-K, and then a lot in first, and then it gradually, there's a little bump in 4th grade, but it gradually starts to calm down. Did anyone have any suggestions or ideas in why grades K through 3 are so heavy in focus skills?
I haven't seen too many responses yet.
Okay.
But
Julie,
what I can give you my ideas, and we know this because we taught younger children before. Learning how to read, there's a lot of skills that go into teaching someone how to read. So I do think, phonics, someone says, Mrs. Graham, thank you so much. Early literacy skills, foundational reading skills, all of that stuff happens in those early grades. So I think that, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Mrs. Graham, for chiming in for us. That's really helpful.
Excellent. All right, well, let's do the same for math. Okay, so we'll look quickly at math. There are, in most state standards sets, math is always around 900 to 1,000 skills. Reading is always around 1,000 to up to 1,200 skills. So math has fewer skills, and math has fewer trip steps, fewer focus skills. So if you look in math, there's about 907 total skills. Okay, that's a lot of work for students to do, and even more for their teachers. 747 are skills. Good. They help. 160 are your critical, your essential skills that must be taught. Students must learn them to the point of mastery. They can't be 70% okay, 80% okay. They've got to know and own these math skills. So about 18% of all math skills are focus skills. So a little bit of difference, more overall skills and more overall focus skills in reading than in math. But let's see where they fall in math. The earlier grades get a little bit of a break, again, until 4th grade. Julie, there's a big bump in 4th grade in math and in reading focus skills. 4th grade teachers.
I have to admit, I was surprised by that when that first came out from all of the research that we did. 4th grade, I was shocked. I had always heard, here's the thing, here's the lie I was always told was that heavy learning happens in 1st, 3rd, 5th, in odd grades, and in even grades it's just review. Well, that's not really true when you look at these kinds of stats and the things that we found from our research. So it was a shock for me. So this was something interesting and new.
And no surprise at all that algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 are filled with focus skills. There are essential pieces that have to be taught, and students have to learn them to the level of mastery. All right, so we have gone over this: critical, impactful, and reflective. But what I'm going to do is take a quick tour for you, and then I'm leaving this slide for you because you will get this presentation, and you can go, I'm going to give you a guide how you can explore the Focus Skills Resource Center on your own. But first, I'm going to pop out here. And we will go to the Focus Skills Resource Center. Julie, can you see this?
I can.
Okay, so first of all, this is an open resource for everyone. Notice you don't have to put in your email. You don't have to give any information. All you have to do is know the URL and you are in. There's no restriction at all. So if we go here, this is organized by state. So Julie, I went with California because I understand that in California, they're digging into this quite deeply.
They
Okay?
are. Mhm.
And anything you want to add, just jump right in.
Okay.
So Julie, would you like to see literacy or math first?
You know, I love reading. So can we see literacy? It's my favorite.
Let's look at literacy. In the California curriculum,
Mhm.
here are the focus skills for literacy. It mirrors what you just saw in the graph on the PowerPoint. Here we have one is just heavy, heavy, heavy. We've got not as much in grade 6 and it begins to taper off. Does anyone have a grade level you want me to explore? If so, just put it into chat and the first grade level wins. Julie, do we have anyone that would like to explore?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten, okay. So when I want to look at each one of these focus skills in kindergarten, I see there are 36 focus skills. That was heavy. We saw that tall bar. I would like to view them, so I click view. When I click view, I get to see the 36 focus skills. They're organized by domain. Now I want to show you a couple of things and we'll just go from the top of the page to the bottom. If I'm here and want to go to math, I just click math. If I'm here and want to switch a grade level, I just switch a grade level, but we're going to keep it at kindergarten, okay? If I would like to print my kindergarten standards, I click print, my kindergarten focus skills, I click print and there it goes. If I want to print all of the focus skills, I click all and then click print. But now let's look at this list of focus skills. First of all, you see literature and key ideas, and you see the number 3. That means there are 3 focus skills in this domain. So I open the domain so we can explore. And here we are. So there are 3 focus skills. With prompting and support, ask and answer questions. With prompting and support, identify and retell. Retell familiar stories with prompting and support. Familiar ideas. But we now have different numbers here. There are 3, but we have the number 104, 110, and 111 under the heading position. When we look at your skills, we look at them in teachable order. Position number 1 would belong to the very first literacy skill in pre-K. Position 1020, or whatever the last one is, position 1020 would be the very last skill in 12th grade. So when you look at position, that is a proxy for difficulty. The higher the number, the more difficult the skill. So you have this information here. You can look at different domains, okay? Or we could look at math and look at a different grade level. Do we have someone who is interested in math? If so, give me a grade level and I'll switch it right here.
8th grade, someone said that's the first one in. I have a quick question for you, Jan, just to make sure that we're clear. We are looking at right now the kindergarten focus skills, but that's not all the skills, right? These are the essential, critical to next learning skills that are part of this, right? So
yes, what an excellent question.
There are more. These are just the focus skills within our learning progression.
These are the focus skills, yes, within our learning progression. Excellent question. That was great. Did you want to stay in California? I guess we can stay here.
Yeah.
All I had to do here was change my grade level to 8 and change my course to math, and you see the same thing. So I can print this for 8th grade. I can print it for all. When I look at this, I see there are not tremendous focus skills here in 8th grade, but I see algebra, functions, geometry, statistics and probability, the number system. I would imagine they're pretty dense skills. So what would you like to see, Julie? What would you like for me to open up?
Geometry is always one of the more challenging ones. So let's take a
It
look.
is. Geometry is a toughie. Okay, so again, there's our list of skills. In geometry, there are 7 focus skills, and now we will look at their position. Okay, remember, oh, go ahead, Julie.
I'm
Oh, I
fine.
thought you had something to say. Remember, these are the critical skills within your entire set of skills. So you don't see all of your skills, you see these critically important skills. Look at the position. Here we have 663 and we have 695. That is a lot. 693, oh, excuse me, 693 and 695. Where is 694? If the skills are put in teachable order, where's 694? Why isn't he here?
Not a focus skill, right?
Not a focus skill. Yes. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Julie, is there anything else you want to see on this very quick tour?
Nope, this is great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, those of you who participated. So this is what you will have, and that is your link so that you can go and explore on your own. So that was finding your focus. And what we need to keep in mind is focus skills, the most essential skills at grade level. They also are prerequisites for the following grade level, and they reflect the emphasis of your standards. So now we're going to look at the next words of wisdom from Dr. Sood, who says, a problem is half solved when you can name it. Well, we named focus skills, so that problem was, how do we find the most essential skills? The name of that is focus skills. Well, now we've got to build some power, and knowledge is power, and we're getting ready to equip you. So what we're going to do is still talk only about focus skills. Everything I'm showing you today is focus skills, but we dug a little bit deeper, and we'll see what we named this. We're going to look at analyzing the difficult, and we mean very difficult skills. We named them trip steps because a lot of people say if learning is a staircase, we just climb the steps. But when we looked at the data, we said if learning is a staircase, not all the steps are equal. Some of the steps are extraordinarily tall, and you have to take a very big step to get there. We decided to call these most difficult focus skills trip steps. So you're equipped with the most essential, and now we're going to equip you with the most difficult among those essential skills. Julie, do you want to tell the story about how we came up with the name trip steps?
Okay, so you may have to fill in any details I missed, but I love this because I'm getting ready to go where this idea came from.
Yeah.
And it came from castles in Ireland and in England and places back then, when in order to keep the castle safe and to keep enemies from getting to you very quickly, castle stairs were built at different heights so that either, you might have 1, 2 steps that are right in an easy progression, and then the third step might be really high, so you would trip and fall, so that it would prevent enemies from getting to you quicker. So you have this really difficult leap in order for that to come from. So we thought, well, in learning progressions, it's the same. One skill might be really easy, the next one might be, but this next one might be really challenging, hence the bigger step. And so that is where it came from, and why we decided to call it trip steps, based on castles in England and in Ireland.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. So now let's take a look into how we identify trip steps. Now, this is a system we use online, and we, Julie, we have much smarter people than either you or I that analyze the data. They are amazing. But I do want to give you a visual so you'll understand how we found trip steps. So what you are looking at now is core progress math. We're looking at math and how it develops from pre-K through algebra 2. So as we look at this graph, we look at the x-axis. I'm just going to get you oriented. These are actually grade levels. Now, -1 is pre-K, because this tool couldn't spell pre-K. It can do all of this, Julie. It can't put in letters. Yeah, I can't figure that one out. All right, 0 is kindergarten, and then these are grade levels. So this, your x-axis is grade level. Your y-axis is skill difficulty, from easiest skills to more difficult skills. What we want to find is a balance between grade level progression and skill difficulty. That's what we're looking for. So as we look at this, you're actually looking at data. Julie, this is from Star Math.
Okay.
Star Math data. We do this constantly to make sure that we are testing each skill at the right time. Do you see this very gentle blue arc?
Mhm.
That's called the trend line.
Okay.
Every dot, every image along that blue line is a skill that a student has answered. Well, billions of students have answered. Every dot along that blue line. We colored that blue line so it would stand out. So that's what you call your trend line. That shows a beautiful relationship. As grade level moves forward, skill difficulty moves up. It shows a beautiful relationship. So that is called our trend line. But as we look at our trend line, we see some other skills here that are both above and below, quite a few skills. So let's take a look at these, and I'll make them stand out. So you know what the trend line is for. That is the expected growth, a beautiful, beautiful correlation between grade level advancement and difficulty advancement.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, Julie, when we look at all skills, we see some are above the trend line. Remember, the y-axis moving up means difficulty.
Difficulty.
Difficult at that grade level, very difficult. The ones below the trend line are quite simple and easy for students to acquire. We don't pay a whole lot of attention to that. We want to look at the ones that are really, really difficult. So as we look here, now you're beginning to see the graph more clearly, but you see some of our dots are dots, and alongside our dots, we have stars. We have identified the focus skills, those 160 essential skills, and they are identified by a star. So to find our trip steps, we went another step. See the stars? That's what we're looking at. We're going to let the other skills fade. We only want to look at trip steps that are extraordinarily difficult, okay? And make sure that we have them. As we looked at trip steps, which are focus skills that are very, very hard at grade level, we found some in pre-K. I mean, these are like, whoa, 3 and 4 year olds, and they're hit with, it looks like 2 really tough skills. Oh my goodness. Thank you, pre-K teachers. There appear to be no trip steps in kindergarten. Don't let that fool you. There will be math focus skills, but there are no math focus skills that are also trip steps in kindergarten. And then there's some in 1 and 2. And Julie, there we go again, grade 4. Grade 4 is apparently quite difficult. And then we see in algebra and geometry, we do not see trip steps. We will see focus skills. We will not see trip steps in geometry and algebra 2. So these are the focus skills that are extraordinarily difficult, and we call them trip steps. We organize the math by domains because math domains are very clear. Geometry, measurement, algebraic expressions. And the one that has the most trip steps, you'll see highlighted. Okay? Now let's look at some of the challenges that we find. Channel back to when you were in 1st grade. There is an extraordinarily difficult skill in 1st grade that must be taught. It is a focus skill, of course, because it is a trip step. This trip step is determine the value of a 2-digit number. Why is this hard? Place value is abstract. This is not only a new concept, it's not a concrete concept for these children. 1st graders, they have to find the value in a 2-digit number, which they haven't done to this date. They see 2-digit numbers everywhere, and they know the name of the 2-digit number, but they do not know the value. The example would be looking at 24 as, please go to channel 24. You would not say, please go to channel 2 10s and 4 1s, right? And Julie, this came to me this morning, so I'm going to run it by you, and if it makes sense, say yes, and if it doesn't, give me this sign. It made me think of decoding, because when young children come into school, they know the word dog. They don't know it's made up of d, and g. They don't know that. They know dog, and they have to pull it apart and understand the role of each of those sounds. That's what came to mind. We have to teach them about the ones place and the tens place. We have to teach them those areas, and then we have to teach them to pull apart and put the 4 in the ones place. Pulling apart, I think, is the thread. Do you see that? Does it make sense?
I do. It matches the decoding.
Would
piece.
love feedback on that. Those of you who are chatting so lovely, please continue. So this is why this one is so difficult. But they have to learn it, and they have to learn it in first grade, and you have to work with them until they have it solid. And here's why. It provides the foundation for everything: regrouping, multiplication. Everything depends in our system on place value. Now, here's a place where you can throw away a skill that is not a focus skill. Jean always uses this one, Roman numerals. We can do away with that because there's no place value in Roman numerals. If kids want to use it for fun, use it for fun. I always taught it to my older students for fun, but that's not one we could focus on, okay? Let's see where this one was. Now you see the trend line right here, and we would expect that student to be working at this level. That student needed to work far above that level, more closely to a second grade level. All right, let's look at a third grade trip step. And this one is extraordinarily difficult. In fact, it has the highest difficulty level of any trip step. It moves children further up than any other. So this is find the area of a rectangle by multiplying the sides, okay? It's third grade. All right. Why is it a challenge? First of all, typically multiplication is taught at the end of second or first to third or middle of third. So it could be working with a new skill. The idea of area and a formula to find area is new. So you have a relatively new skill. You have a new process to find something that you've always found in a different way. Tiling, that worked well. So students new to tile, they didn't know the formula, and they have to learn a new term, square units. They have to know that that is a square unit and know what that means. This is massively difficult, but here's why it has to be taught in third grade. It is what you need to do to understand multiplication and use multiplication in formulas for things like geometry. Critically important. This is the third grade skill. It is on par more closely with seventh grade difficulty. Now, seventh grader would ace that one, but for a third grader to master that, the third grader would need the knowledge almost of a seventh grader. It is extraordinarily difficult. So let's look at a seventh grade one. Determine the area or circumference of a circle. Now, why is this one hard? Area typically focuses on rectangles, and that's been fine. And everything up until that point that you've done in area had corners and angles and points. And now we have something completely different. You have to shift your thinking and learn different formulas and understand the distinct property of a circle as opposed to a triangle. This has to be taught at seventh grade. It's difficult. It has to be taught. And here's where it is. Here's seventh grade. We would expect it about right here. It's up here. It needs the cognitive power of about a 10th grader. So quite difficult. So those are the math trip steps. Let's look at a couple of examples for reading. And you think, oh, reading, yes, that would be simpler than math, wouldn't it? Yeah, I hate to burst your bubble. In reading, Julie, we looked at data from both STAR early literacy and STAR reading.
Okay.
So on this graph for reading, all skills are green, but we wanted you to see the skills that came from STAR early literacy in dark green, so you'll understand where they are. Okay, so this is that in reading, that very strong relationship there. We are looking for the same relationship between grade level, progressing across the grade level, and progressing through the difficulty. We want there to be a nice fit, and you're going to find places where there's not a nice fit. This again is our trend line. So we'll look at a different area, but now we're going to look only for the stars. Julie, why are we only interested in the stars when we look at this graph?
Because those are our trip steps, right? Those are the really difficult skills for kids to learn. They require.
Yes, they're actually our focus skills.
Okay, so
Yeah,
stars are just our focus skills. I was going to ask you that earlier.
Yeah,
Stars
all stars are focus skills, yes.
And all of the green dots, anything green is what then? So what are
STAR early literacy.
those are all of our skills, and then the stars are our focus skills.
Yes.
Okay.
Green is focus skills in STAR early literacy.
Okay.
Regular green is focus skills in reading. Yeah, well done. Well done. Thank you for that. It's made my job easy. All right, so now we're going to do that same thing. We're going to look at reading trip steps, and we're going to look at them. Remember, they are all focus skills. So we're going to look at reading focus skills that are really difficult for students to grasp. And Julie and I have been in early literacy development for years, and we were shocked by what we learned. No surprise here, we don't have any trip steps in pre-K. So there are no focus skills that are extraordinarily hard in pre-K. But my goodness, look at kindergarten and first grade. And oh my goodness, look at 7th grade reading. You would think, what's going on in 7th grade reading? So as we look at this, let's dig in. Now we analyzed these not by domain, because domains are very broad in reading. We looked at skill areas. So we found that some skill areas were significant. So we look at character and plot. That is taught from kindergarten through the 8th grade. It's taught for 9 years. You have trip steps in K1 and in 6, 7, 8. In between that, you likely have skills and focus skills. If we look at conventions and range of reading, another very long 9-year stretch, we work on that. And then analysis and comparison, which there's so much conversation about that in reading. We have 1 trip step, and it's in 10th grade. So let's look at some of these reading trip steps. First of all, we're going to look at this one right here, and this is a kindergarten trip step. We would expect it to be right about here, and it's way up here. So what is that trip step? Yeah. Segmenting vowels in the middle of a word. That's very difficult. Young children know words as a whole. They don't know them as parts, and it's difficult for them to segment, okay? Pick the word that has the ah sound, like cat, cot, and cut. This is difficult because you're segmenting phonemes at the middle of a word, and children have trouble separating words. Did you eat lunch? Sounds like one word to a child. Vowel sounds are subject to pronunciation differences. In Texas, that would be cat. It would be 2 syllables, cat. Vowel sounds are subject to those differences, and some learners may not know the word that you're sharing with them, cot. If they've not slept on a cot, they wouldn't know it. Daniel Willingham says we are not born with the ability to segment speech sounds. We have to learn that in foundational literacy so that we can decode. But children have trouble knowing when a word stops and a new word ends. Imagine how much trouble they have knowing when a sound within a word stops and a new ends and a new one begins. Okay, let's look at a 5th grade trip step. Again, very difficult. We'd expect it to be around here, but it's up here just a smidgen. And this is using grade level vocabulary, using words like however, although, and nevertheless. Why is this difficult? A very small subset of vocabulary is taught explicitly. Most of our vocabulary we learn through our environment. And at my house, we would say although, and we would say however, but I don't think we said nevertheless very much. So my children would struggle with that. Acquiring vocabulary in context also requires that you understand the knowledge in the context. For example, if you're looking at some event in history and you don't know the context, you're not going to get the vocabulary. Bilinguals, emerging bilinguals, may find connective words and transitory words like these very, very difficult, okay? Now you want to look at a really hard one. This is 7th grade, really, really hard. All we're asking 7th graders to do on top of all that math and all that literacy, all we're asking them to do is be a mind reader. That's all you have to do, because you have to analyze the tone of an informational text, explaining the impact of the author's word choice, okay? Like a letter to the editor. This is something that would be very difficult for us to do. Okay, why did the author pick those words? All you have to do is dig inside the author's head and figure it out on your own. So when you look at this one, this is very difficult for 7th grade because they have to apply so many inferences. They have to identify your tone as either helpful or harmful, humorous, sarcastic, or angry. It's difficult just by reading if you don't have the entire context. Readers may not have background knowledge in the issues they're reading in the letter to the editor. So this one requires a vast amount of vocabulary, knowledge about what they're reading, especially if it's a letter to the editor, and a way to look at words and determine why the author chose that word. It's just requiring a whole lot from the reader to get from the author who is not present. So that one is quite difficult. Okay. Now, these trip steps, we've given you an overview, and I want to let you know that when you visit the Focus Skills Resource Center, you'll scroll to the bottom all the way down. You'll think you're going to leave, but you're not. All the way down to the bottom, you will find documents that are reading trip steps and math trip steps. These are for you to download, to share, to give the URL to all of your colleagues, to get everyone on board with these focus skills that are so difficult. We named them focus skills that are trip steps. Okay, the last thing we were going to do, and this is kind of fun, and we'll go quickly through this. We had to analyze the difficulty. We had to find our focus, and now we have to engage people. We're going to need a lot of help. And this is why I love Dr. Sood. This is in his book, but he and I also had a conversation about this, that survival of the fittest is out of date. The new rule, if you look at physical health, is survival of the kindness. Helping others, creating a tribe or community, improves your physical and emotional health, your immunity, and increases longevity. So survival of the fittest, have a nice day. Survival of the kindness, you're going to rule the world. So how can we be kind at school with very difficult steps? Let's look at this. We have a quick poll question, and then we'll wrap this up. Julie?
Okay, so how can Catholic educators ensure students master math and reading trip steps? Please select all that apply. So if you could play along with us, how are we going to help kids master reading and math trip steps? 1, secure time for team planning. Consider cross-grade level planning teams. Secure instructional resources. Monitor focus skills attainment during data team meetings. Share math and reading trip steps with parents. Which of these will do it? Pick all that you think apply.
Right. And if there's one that's missing, put it into chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But think of the principal saying, I have secured time for team planning. That is kind. We're not asking you to stay after school. We're not asking you to come to a weekend workshop. I have secured time for us to plan. Cross-level teams sharing ideas. Sharing math and reading trip steps with parents. Let them in, let them know this is what's difficult and here's what we're doing at school. All right, so let's see what our audience thinks here. Everything, yes.
Yes.
We're extremely kind. We want to do it all. Absolutely. And then there could be even more, but this will get you started. All right, thank you. Thank you. We can go ahead and close this poll. And let's see other ways that we can be kind, okay? Common Sense Media looked at readers, both digital readers and traditional paper readers in 2017 and 2020, when the pandemic hit. And what they did is give them books, lots and lots of books. And here's what happened. In 2017, there was an average of 29 minutes per day. MPD is minutes per day in reading. By 2020, the average was 32. It grew. It grew. That means students grew. Black students grew the most. They almost doubled their reading time. The population of all students read an average of 32 minutes a day. Black students with access to books, these that had books given to them, read 48 minutes a day. Reading builds vocabulary, reading builds knowledge. Reading prepares you for whatever you want to be once when you are an adult. This is extraordinarily kind to give books to children. Poor families, families earning less than $30,000 a year. Children in those families doubled their e-reading time. Now, keep in mind, it only went from 5 minutes to 10, but it doubled. If we give them more books, it could double again, and we're looking at exponential growth. So providing access to children so that they have books, access to books is kind, and it will help in their reading. I'll just give you an example. The more you read, the better you grow. We're looking at all readers in this graph. We're using MyOn data. So we're looking at readers, and we start looking at the population of all readers. But then let's disaggregate. Every ethnic group grew when they read more, and they read more when they have access to books.
And it doesn't matter that this is digital, right?
No, it does not. It does not. It's how many minutes you are reading, okay? Discovering a great read. If your students go, well, I don't know what to read, this is kind. We just released this year's What Kids Are Reading report. You can click that link when you get this PowerPoint and download the report, but you can also make custom book lists. So can parents. It's like shopping online for books, I guess. You can filter what you want and find the books that you love. For every grade level, K through 12, we show you the top 10 favorite books, both paper and digital. We also give you really informative knowledge pieces from authors and researchers in the reading field. We also give you new and now. What are some new books? What are some books that are really trending now? This is a phenomenal resource, and it's kind, and it's free. I like free is kind. When we look at math, practice is kind. Now, I'm not going to take the time to go all the way through this graph. I want you to look at the students in the orange, represented by the orange bar. These are students who historically score at the 25th percentile or below. These are struggling students. And when COVID started, there was a group that had absolutely no access to Freckle. Freckle is an app that gives you math and English and science, social studies practice, but it's best known for math. Freckle is a member of the Renaissance family. You can start with the free version, and that may be all you need, and you're fine. If you want to go to a paid version, we can help you with that. It's more connected to Star Math. But let's look at this graph. We're going to start in the middle where it says students with moderate Freckle use. Look at the orange students. These are kids with a history of struggle read up to 99 minutes. Okay, if they, no, 99 days, they practiced freckle. Look at what they did. They grew, and they grew significantly. Students using freckle for more than 100 days started the school year 2021 started where they were. They avoided this impact of COVID. Students in the orange, those who have a history of low performance in math, started ahead of where they were the year before. Were they on grade level? Not yet. Not yet. But they started ahead. They didn't bring further decline. They started ahead. So it looks like 100 days or more of freckle is very kind. Freckle gives teachers all kinds of instant feedback. So you can instantly look at what students are doing and get a recommendation. Okay. I'm going to go ahead, and I want to get to this part because, Julie, this is our favorite part. We want to go to math. Math is very kind. Implementing math is very kind. And I'm going to share with you information from the U.S. Department of Labor. They have quite a bit of information about becoming a mathematician or a statistician, and they call it Math for Good. This is from our government, warm, fuzzy talk from our government. I'm thrilled by this. They talk about the job of a mathematician is to solve problems that solve problems. And let me give you an example. This young lady has physical challenges, and she had no access to a playground until a mathematician figured out everything you needed to figure out to make a safe, effective, adaptable swing, accessible swing. That's a mathematician solving problems to solve a problem. So now that lovely young lady can go to the park with her friends, and she can swing as her friends are right beside her. This is what a mathematician can do. So focus on those math trip steps and talk to them about being kind. You will solve problems with what you learn in this 7th grade trip step. You will solve problems down the road that will help others. So implementing math is quite kind. So we started with looking at key insights to guide the recovery. We ended up with intense focus on focus skill, and then a laser dip into those focus skills that are trip steps. So we identified the essential, but please be aware of the cognitive load. 4th grade and 7th grade have heavy loads of focus skills and trip steps in both reading and math. If you are a 7th grade teacher or a 4th grade teacher, thank you from the bottom of my heart. When I see a 4th grader or a 7th grader, I have 2 4th graders that I connect with often. I tell them how proud I am of them for the work they are doing. Analyze the difficult. Look at those trip steps, dig into them. There's not many of them, but dig into each one to build readers and mathematicians. And finally, engage the humans and be kind. Let kindness lead your way. So Julie, we have just a couple of minutes for questions and answers. If we have any questions that come in.
Well, we've just got one here that I think is pretty important.
Okay.
And well, there's 2 actually that just came in Q&A.
Okay.
My students generally enjoy reading, but math is another story. How do I motivate them to tackle the really challenging math skills when math isn't something they enjoy?
Yeah, there's a pretty long answer to that one, but I will give you the short answer. There's quite a bit of new research on how we talk to children about math. And we tend to say, out of a good heart, we tend to say, okay, today we're going to find the area of a rectangle by multiplying the length times the side. It's really easy. You're going to get it. It'll be fine. And then when they don't say math is wrong. They say, I am wrong. I am not for math. So one of the most recent recommendations is level with them. Today, we're going to find the area of a rectangle. It's going to be hard, really hard. You're going to get frustrated. You know what? I know what I'm doing. We're going to work as a team. We're going to take this step by step by step, and everyone in this room is going to master it. May take a while, but we're going to get it done. Let them know that math is a step by step and you grow incrementally. be very cautious not to say, oh, this is easy, you'll get it. Okay,
Okay.
that was
Very
a good question.
Very good. And just one more quick one. If students are listening to audiobooks, does this count as reading time or is it just entertainment?
Oh, interesting, interesting. Another long answer to that, but I will go as quickly as I can. If they are listening to audiobooks, what they're doing, it's like being read aloud to. It doesn't have the emotional connection of having a human read aloud to you, but it does have the other effect of having been read aloud to. And so while the child is not reading, the child is listening, the child is developing vocabulary and developing background knowledge.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
No, I don't think so. And I think our time is growing short.
It is growing short.
So before we go today, I would like to invite everyone to contact us with any questions or to arrange a personalized demonstration of Mayan, Freckle, or any other Renaissance products. You can call us at the number you see on the screen right there, or you can send an email to educatordevelopment@renaissance.com. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see everyone next month at NCEA in their annual conference in New Orleans. I will be there along with some of my colleagues and look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you for today. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Jan and Julie. Loaded with information today and lots of things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought about with math and reading, starting with K right through all the way through. But thank you so much for this very informational webinar.
Thank you.
And thank you for mentioning our conference. We will be in New Orleans from April 19th to the 21st. And if you want more information about that conference, you can go to ncea.org/NCEA 2022. And Jan, Julie, do you have anything more that you want to say just in closing?
No, thank you so much. We appreciate everyone's time today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you at our future webinars. If you want information on our upcoming webinars, you can go to ncea.org/webinars. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.